Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the science of addiction and lay out a proven 5-step plan to help you reclaim your control. So let's start with a story that's, well, it might sound a little too familiar. This is about a student named Rohan. His quick 5-minute study breaks scrolling through reels, they started to stretch. Pretty soon, 10 minutes turned into an hour. And just like that, a small habit had snowballed into a full-blown addiction, completely crushing his focus, his confidence, and, yeah, it eventually led to depression. And here's the thing, Rohan's story isn't some rare exception. Nope. It's estimated that a staggering 90% of people today, especially students, are caught in a very similar trap with some kind of addiction. And this is a big but, there is a way out. So here's our game plan. We'll start by looking at the modern addiction trap, then dig into why we get hooked, and after that, we'll walk through a solid 5-step plan, accepting your reality, retraining your brain, and finally, rebuilding your life. Okay, so let's dive right in and really understand the problem, because the modern addiction trap, it looks a whole lot different than what you probably picture in your head. When you boil it all down, addiction is really about a compulsive, overwhelming need for a hit of a brain chemical called dopamine. It creates this short-term reward that feels great, and your brain just craves it, even when you know, deep down, that the long-term consequences are just not good. And you really need to get this distinction because it's crucial. We often think of substances, right? Alcohol, drugs. But today, the biggest challenge for so many of us are these behavioral addictions you see right here. Gaming, that endless scroll, pornography, all of which are literally designed by experts to keep us hooked. So how in the world does a simple little habit transform into such a powerful addiction? Well, it all comes down to this predictable 4-stage cycle that just keeps repeating. See, it all kicks off with a simple trigger. And that trigger creates a craving. You give in, that's the response. And what comes next? Guilt. But the very next day, that same trigger starts the whole loop all over again. Why? Because your brain is desperately chasing that powerful chemical, dopamine. Now, check this out because this is where it gets really fascinating. This is based on Harvard research. A normal brain has a pretty stable, predictable dopamine level, but in an addicted brain, it's all over the place. We're talking huge spikes followed by deep crashes. And it's this constant up and down volatility that can lead to things like anxiety and depression. And this quote from a neuroscientist just nails the real danger here. She explains that when your brain gets used to these massive artificial highs, everything else, the normal, healthy, wonderful parts of life, they just start to feel, well, boring. But here's the good news. You can absolutely break this cycle. And science suggests about a 30-day timeline to do it. Now, I'm not going to lie, the first 2 weeks are the hardest. That's the withdrawal period. But if you push through, by week 3, you'll feel a turnaround, a new energy, a new sense of hope. And by that 4th week, the addiction really starts to lose its grip and you start to feel free again. Okay, let's get into the action plan. And it all begins with what is maybe the most difficult, but also the most critical step of all, being radically, brutally honest with yourself. So I want you to ask yourself these 3 questions and really be honest. Number 1, do your 5-minute breaks somehow turn into hours without you even noticing? 2, do you feel kind of dull, sad, or just empty when you can't do the activity? And 3, do you feel guilty afterward, but then do the exact same thing the next day? If you're answering yes to these, then you're probably dealing with an addiction. And just admitting that, that's the first real victory. And here's why that admission is so incredibly powerful. Research from Stanford shows that you have a 65% higher chance of succeeding if you simply admit you have a problem and make a real commitment to changing. Maybe even tell someone. That accountability, it's a game changer. Okay, so once you've accepted it, the next 2 steps are all about actively rewiring your brain's responses. It's time to starve the addiction of the fuel it needs to survive. And these 2 steps, they work together like a 1-2 punch. First, you're going to shift your dopamine source away from the bad habit. And second, you're going to identify and remove the triggers that kickstart the craving in the first place. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, imagine you feel that intense craving for your phone. Instead of giving in, you immediately get up and go exercise for 30 minutes. Research proves that this act of replacing a harmful dopamine source with a healthy one is incredibly effective at shutting down cravings. And at the same time, you've got to play defense. You have to eliminate your triggers. If notifications are your trigger, turn them all off. Seriously, all of them. If certain friends are always pinging you to game, mute them for a while. The key is to make it way harder for that addiction cycle to even get started. All right, let's bring it home with the final 2 steps. These are all about building a new identity and mastering one incredibly powerful mental skill. You know, as James Clear writes in Atomic Habits, this story you tell yourself literally becomes your reality. So you have to consciously shift your identity. You got to stop saying, I'm an addict. And you start telling yourself every single day, I am powerful. I will change. This addiction is small and I am stronger. And now for the final step. I like to call this the secret weapon. This is a simple but profound rule that people like Sanjay Dutt and Honey Singh have used to overcome their own severe addictions. And the concept is it's remarkably simple. When that urge hits, and it will, your only job is to control yourself for just 10 minutes. You don't have to fight it for hours. Just wait. The science is clear on this. The peak intensity of a craving will pass if you can just outlast that initial 10-minute storm. So there it is, your 5-step action plan. Step 1, accept reality. 2, shift your dopamine. 3, remove your triggers. 4, change your identity. And 5, master the 10-minute rule. If you follow these steps consistently for 30 days, I promise you, you will fundamentally change your life. So remember, change isn't just possible, it's predictable if you follow the science. You have the knowledge, you have the steps. The only real question left is this: who will you choose to be 30 days from now?